CEO Fran Rosch is with us. So glad you're with us. We talk about digital identity, cybersecurity is in focus. Tell us about your quarter and your outlook.
Thanks for having me, Nicole. It's good to be here. So we had a really strong
You beat on the top and bottom line, as you noted, a strong quarter, no doubt. As you see what's going on here, and every single day we're seeing cybersecurity, cyber warfare. Identity is such an important part. Tell us a little bit about what ForgeRock does and why people should know more about it. Because when you look at companies, we have all kinds of authentication that we have to do, right? You try and log in your laptop, then you have to do an authentication on your phone. It's a whole thing. And identity is such an important factor. So it's for companies. It's also just for individuals as well, as people were trying to show their vaccines, for example, right? What are some of the challenges now, and what really sets you apart from some of the competition?
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge has actually been around for 40 or 50.
10, 20 years. Tell me, how will I be getting onto my Shake Shack and my Chase Bank and my whatever else if it's not going to be with a password?
So it's going to be friction-free, Nicole. You're just going to be...
I'm looking forward to it. You're not wrong. It is frustrating. Fran Rosch, thank you. Always wonderful to see you at ForgeRock. Great quarter. And thanks for coming back on the show. We'll talk again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Coming up next, George Silas is standing by with today's disruptor. And today, so tell us about this one as the company reported its numbers. You're watching the move and the analyst calls as well. Elastic.
Yeah, this is interesting stuff.
I think it's great that you talked about Datadog being one of the competitors, because this group overall, it's not as bad as it could have been on the quarter. So that was some good news there, and the outperform ratings that we're still seeing. When you look at the competition in this space, tell us a little bit about that. I mentioned that. Thank you so much, George Silas, with our disruptor every single today. And today is Elastic, ESTC. Thank you, George Silas. Have a nice weekend, George. Thanks.
You too. Thanks.
Coming up next, we are ready to talk all about retail. In fact, Gap is Morningstar. Thank you both for being with us. So, Steve, what were your biggest takeaways from what we heard from the Gap, which of course has Old Navy, Athleta, Banana Republic, and the Gap, its namesake?
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Nicole. Obviously, the market's fallen a little out of love with them this morning since
strength. So, David, tell me your thoughts and your outlook on this company and this stock.
Yeah, sure.
About what the outlook is. You used the word mixed at one point, and that is because while shoppers are trying to get back out there, you have some pent-up demand. You still have uncertainty with jobs and geopolitical concerns, inflation, all of these things that are happening. I was reading some articles preparing for this interview, gentlemen, and I know you're well aware that there have been concerns from the retailers about what's going on in Eastern Europe. In fact, halting sales or halting shipments. I mean, I've heard several names here in this article that I was looking through: Victoria's Secret, H&M, Ross and Nordstrom both gave upbeat outlooks. So not surprised that those are on your list of some names to watch. There's been a lot of optimism around Target. Steve, as we take a look here at your notes overall, I'm sorry, David, when we take a look, I was just reading through your notes one more time. We had corporate tax rate concerns. Seems like you're taking a break from that. Who do you think, which companies do you think are well positioned for 2022?
Yeah, it's
and LVMH, I've heard a lot of positive things around that as well when we talk about luxury. Final quick thought, Steve.
Yeah, I think the luxury end of the market is going to be tremendously buoyant during 2022.
About some pressure on those names. Thank you both, David and Steve, for being with us. I appreciate it. Good luck there at the Gap. Right? Good old Gap. David Schwartz, Morningstar, Steve Brooks from the Pop-Up Retail Expert. Thank you both. And that's going to do it for OF and what they're bringing to the table here. It did report its quarterly numbers yesterday. You've seen a growth in every way, pretty much. Tell me about the quarter and the outlook.
Oh, the quarter's been great. I mean, we grew our revenues.
The people coming and the amount of times that they're coming. How are you doing that? I know you have a lot of loyalty programs and specialty things that you're offering. What's doing well for the company?
It's this real omni-channel approach. So
going forward, the costs and how you balance that, because you have local franchises opening up under the Rumble name, right? Tell me a little bit about that, the footprint, and how you expect to get more and more, because it is a tough competitive nature.
I mean, what's so great is that, all of our brands are truly and it's and go to all 10 brands and all 2,000 plus locations across the country. So instead of just going to one brand and one.
You in any way, shape, or form, whether it's supply chain issues that are causing equipment to be later, maybe the equipment costs more because there's less of it. You tell me, freight costs, I don't know. How's inflation? Are you noticing it? With you, congratulations, a great quarter. XPOF, Exponential Fitness. Anthony Gessler, thank you so much, CEO there. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still ahead in the second half of our show, we're ready to talk about Splunk, Russia, Ukraine, and how it's hitting crypto. Because when we saw earlier in the week, right, you saw Bitcoin jumping. People were so excited. There was so much speculation surrounding why it was moving, only to see it move back again today. Your thoughts?
Hey, Nicole.
Bitcoin. And understandably so, because the ruble has lost so much in value, and that's why they rush to, raise rates and try and change how their ruble is valued, because they're suffering with that. So now there's all these different elements and some things that we don't necessarily fully understand. And the Ukraine's government canceling an airdrop event. Explain the role on crypto on that. Is that something that you've been talking about? If not, something else that we should be watching?
Yeah.
So with that now, are you a believer? I mean, you're obviously a believer in crypto. It's a silly way to say it, but there's different ways to be involved in crypto, right? With Bitcoin, with Ether, with Coinbase, with Square, with MicroStrategy. I mean, there's so many ways to do this. How do you suggest, because somebody may want to have some of this in their portfolio, right? Digital assets, as you said, are important and growing and probably a good footprint in a portfolio. How do you do it? How much? How often? Yeah. I definitely enjoy our conversations very much because you're so well versed on all of this. And a couple of other things on your radar that you brought to our attention, for example, the sandbox, NFTs, some thoughts there. Maybe you could explain to folks what it is that you're watching, why these are important.
Yeah. So for those who haven't heard of it, the sandbox.
Common questions you get from younger folks, people in your generation, they must be asking you as a pro, 1,000,001 questions. And, what's some of the most common questions and what do you mostly tell them?
Oh, gosh. I think the biggest one is.
Yeah. And I know people are nervous about it still. I mean, but every day every day it continues. There's more and more trust built in this type of investment. Thank you so much, Katie. It's great to chat with you. Thank you very, very much. Katie Petallides, Head of Research at Arca. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole.
Still ahead, we're going to bring in our panel to discuss the February employment report. Senior Director of Economic Research at the Conference Board. Thank you both for being here. Richard, I'll start with you. Obviously, 678,000, and it seemed, for the most part, better than expected, and some nice revisions to the prior months. What was your takeaway from today?
A very good number, Nicole, for job seekers, and it bodes well for all of us.
So, Tom, what were your thoughts as you looked at that?
Yeah, this was a very strong jobs report.
As I look at the numbers here, I mean, certainly, Richard, you noticed the one thing that stood out was wage inflation, right? You didn't see the wage growth that I guess some were expecting. You still have 5.1% year over year. What do you make of that compared to what we're seeing with inflation? What stands out to you when you think about the consumer and what they're experiencing?
Yeah, it's a difficult time because inflation is outpacing the wage growth. However, the consumer
is the job seeker. Do you agree, Tom, that the job seeker is in the driver's seat, at least in part? Right? Explain that as a way to try and keep people in place as opposed to them jumping around.
Yeah. So
home here too. Tell me about the big picture and how we may see any sort of economic print start changing. I mean, I don't know, right? Mortgage rates have been on the rise, even though now I know they've pulled back a little bit here. The 10-year is at 1.72, but we're seeing volatility. I mean, I think that's fair to say. Tom?
At the very least,
you have your staffing index. You've seen it moving higher, which shows some good news for people that are searching for jobs or those that are employers looking for folks to work with them. That being said, within the jobs report, we saw leisure and hospitality on the rise. Construction was higher, healthcare. As far as the breakdown of what kind of jobs are being created, I did see lower skilled, lower jobs were more prevalent, and that group was growing versus those with college degrees, right? Very much. And thank you, friends, for joining us here on the Watch List every single weekday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Keep it right here. Market on Close is next.